Hello, BookTube. And I had planned on doing this alone, a DIY live, but Aaron has decided to join me. So, hi, Aaron.
Hello. Hi, Sean.
And yeah, so I just been feeling a little better in these past few days. So I thought I'd do a live and just sort of talk about what I've been reading a little bit and books that I've received from subscribers, which have been really cool. And Aaron, you said you've received a few things, or not you've received, but you've got a few things, I think.
Yeah, I've got a few. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you want to, is there anything else you wanted to talk about, or do you just want to jump into that?
But I'm happy to jump straight in.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, this is the one I bought. I bought this. I've read this a couple of times. But I've never had a physical copy of it, which is The Vampire by Polidori.
Yeah.
Now, I have this. I when I ordered it, I just thought it was going to be a sort of pamphlet-like book. But as it turns out, it folds out like a map.
That's weird. I've never seen it. I've not seen that. That is very strange.
And like I say, I like it. But where you start there on that side, and then you turn around to that side, and then get to that side again.
Is there a publisher? Well, obviously there's a publisher for that. Who is the publisher?
Yeah, if I hold it up, it says uh, Travelman's short stories.
Oh,
I,
I've never seen that.
no, I didn't. I'm gonna say I'd never heard of them. It says here that it was published in this copy was published in 1999. So
Yeah. Hi, Nicole, and hi, Jenny.
oh,
Yeah, you're not being forced to socialize, so that's good. And yeah, it's a quirky book.
yeah,
It's great. It reminds me of what Criterion does for their booklets. It's a fold out thing like that. They do in their Blu-rays, and I hate that. But for that, that's kind of different. That's kind of cool.
yeah. I've got to say, as I say, I've never seen that before. So that was nice. I did after you and Brandy talked about them. I got myself some R.L. Stein books,
Yeah. Well, that's a
and
good story.
that one.
Yeah, I've got a few of those. Yeah.
Because as I said, I've never read these before, even though I was the right age. But I did see the TV series, which I really enjoyed as a kid. So looking forward to reading them.
Yeah, I never saw the TV show at all. I've read one, and it was fun. So I'm more than happy to read more occasionally. And the Spaminators here, big surprise. And Randy, hello Randy.
Right.
Oh, and
No, not
Death Warmed Over has arrived.
yeah.
Um, yeah, Mark has been a little under the weather.
Yeah, we're just waiting for the news of one of his legs to drop off.
That's probably going to happen to me actually with my leg. Hello,
Oh,
hello, Vinty Lindy. But yeah, so but you got the Arthur Macon too, didn't you?
oh yeah,
Yeah,
that's around as well. So I've got
yeah.
that.
I've not seen that edition before.
Now it's trying to work out who it's. I just see if I can find the. Called itself what 451 Flame Tree, which I've never heard of. The publisher.
Oh, I've heard of Flame Tea Press, but I don't know if that's the same thing. They do those hardcovers generally, but I think they do paperbacks as well. But they're sort of plasticized covers with lots of illumination, sort of on it, silver or gold, with a lot of stuff. I roll around.
I entirely believe that.
Well, then you must watch the scene from Greed where Zazu Pitts takes her gold coins and puts them on the bed and rolls around on them naked, and as she's orgasmic with the movements. Yeah, I've been receiving a lot of stuff this week from subscribers, just stuff that I wasn't expecting. The first one that I got was so great. This one here, and I sort of, it's from 1946, or at least the original book, but I thought this, even though being the fourth printing, it was still 1946. But then I didn't look at the back flap where it refers to another book as Treasury, a Treasury of Science Fiction that Groff Conklin did, and that's several years later. It could even be 1950, but still, that's not bad. It's not very easy to find, regardless, in a dust jacket, and it's a little rough around the edges, but so am I. Well, it's kind of cool because it's got a lot of interesting stuff in here. Except I'm not sure why he decided to put. Maybe at the time it wasn't that these weren't well representative in anthologies like Edgar Allan Poe, Arthur I always would say Arthur Conan Doyle, H.G. Wells, and Julian Huxley. But it's got like he definitely likes Robert Heinlein, because there's 4 Heinleins in here, 2 under Heinlein's name and 2 pseudonyms of Anson MacDonald.
I've got to say, I've read Starship Troopers, which I enjoyed, of Heinlein's, but I didn't know he had any. Didn't know he wrote on pseudonyms.
Yeah, I don't think Anson MacDonald is the only one, but I can't remember off the top of my head what else he used, but he did use a few pseudonyms. I think for things that he didn't think were quite up to snuff. But according to this, it's some of the best. So that was kind of interesting.
One thing I did read just before I got started reading just before the Arthur Machen arrived was this.
Oh yeah. Those are really cool covers.
Yeah, there's a whole series of them covering, starting with Lord Salisbury and ending with Blair, of all the 20th century British Prime Ministers. It's really good. I mean, do you know about him? Can I ask?
Not much. Not much at all.
Well, he was Canadian, which was unusual.
Oh.
Born in a New I think it was New Brunswick.
Yeah.
His family were from Northern Ireland. Well, Northern Ireland and Scotland, and they lived in Canada for his early years, where he was born, and then he came and lived with relatives in Glasgow. So, I think he was the only British Prime Minister in the 20th century who was not British if I say he wasn't not British by birth of where he was born and grew up, as opposed to, Boris Johnson, I know, who was born abroad, but he grew up in Britain, whereas Bonalaw was born and grew up in Canada for, as I say, I think until he was 10. So.
Yeah, well, that's the scary thing with Boris Johnson. He could become president of the United States because he was born there, I suppose. Faminator saying you're my divining science fiction videos have lit a fire under me. I've read very little science fiction, but I'm going to try. Well, I'm glad that they've spurred you on. I've taken a bit of a hiatus because it just sort of seems that every one that I'm doing is getting less and less views. So I'm going, okay, maybe I'll relook at it because I thought the one doing the magazines would be interesting, but that didn't get that many views either. And the last one that I did on Monday was quite pitiful for views. but it's fun doing, and I might not do it every day like I did last week. I might just start doing it once or twice a week or something like that, and just pick things a little different. And I like the idea of doing the magazines because I was starting to do the magazines that were connected with Galaxy, and I did the first one, and there's still like 4 others to do, and then there's Galaxy magazine, so that could take me a while to do as well. Also,
Yeah, I've been watching those videos. I've been enjoying them. I think I said to you that about the how I like the speculative fiction idea of it being the overall one, and then science fiction and fantasy and horror being subgenres of that.
yeah, some people like that, and some don't. It's I just sort of think that speculative fiction has too much baggage with the term, though, and I like the idea of something like that, but I'm not too sure of using speculative fiction as the term. That's the only thing, because there's so much baggage with it. It's like when you use it's I just almost calling it terminal terminology, because everybody has their own definition of what it means. Like when somebody says sci-fi, it means many different things, and people get on really high horses for it.
Yeah.
Hi, MJ.
And
But yeah, so that's but that's why I thought that was suggested by a viewer, a commenter, to do the speculative fiction one, and it was basically with regards to Robert Heinlein's sort of definition of it, and I just go, oh God, no, I'm not going to do this. Then I thought, well, why not give it a try? But I did miss out. I did miss a few things because I wanted to do I like it just I didn't want to make it too long, because I was going to add in what's his name, the guy who took over New Worlds, Elric of Melbourne,
Michael Moorcock.
Michael Moorcock, yeah, because he weighed in on a little bit, and then also I wanted to talk about Harlan Ellison's use of the word as well. And it's funny when I sort of after it, and I thought, okay, do I maybe make a second one and talk about Harlan Ellison's and do a few other things? And I started looking, and it's funny. People are saying on the internet that Harlan Ellison created the term speculative fiction, and it's like, geez. I guess those videos are appealing to newbies like me. I suspect a lot of your viewers are science fiction veterans. Yeah, some of them are. Yeah. But I just don't know. I thought I would do terms that were less known, or that was the idea. But I still haven't quite sussed out how to do that. Hi, Greg. But yeah, but they're fun to do, and I think I will continue them. I like the idea of the magazines, like, because there's so many magazines that were out in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, and even into the 60s, that lasted one or two issues or a half a dozen issues, and that's it. You know, they came and they went, like the one I did, the international science fiction, which I thought was a really cool idea. And, even Frederick Pohl doing it, but he thought it was cool. The distributors thought it was cool, and then it didn't sell. And then it's, oh, that's a bad idea.
I do wonder if they tried that a few years later, if it would have taken off.
Yeah, well, that's what like Mike Ashley said in this. It's at the bottom of a small pile here. Excuse me. Weird. Was it index to, or an encyclopedia of weird fiction and science fiction magazines, and he's saying that it's because it was to the American audience and they weren't used to it so much, even though that stuff was coming in, and it was almost for that time doomed to fail. But as you say, a decade later in the 70s, I bet that would have taken off a lot more, because I think even the speculative fiction guy that said speculative fiction is the umbrella term, and I'm just blanking on his name here again, but he wrote Dahlgren.
Samuel Delaney.
Yeah, Samuel Delaney. I think his co-edited original. What was it called? Was it called? No, it wasn't Orbit. It was. Oh, I forget now what it was called, but an original anthology. I think was international, and it went for quite a few years. I think. Harlan probably didn't invent the term. He probably just said it. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, no, but it is funny that I do see stuff like that, and I'm going, like, and it's repeated. It's repeated, these things that I see on these sites, because they're saying he created the term, and it's like, no, like I think I mentioned that it was in 1899 or 1898 or 99 was the first time it appeared in print, and it was for a review of Edward Bellamy's Looking Backward. Oh no, that's the wrong pile, because I do want to talk about some of these. But yeah, Edward Bellamy's Looking Backward. This is a nice little edition that I got today, from probably around 1891, which is quite nice. The 19th edition. This bloody thing sold in the like hotcakes. Not many people know it today and have ever read it. And at the time, there was I remember reading somewhere. I think it was I've got lots of books about history of science fiction. There were groups and clubs that were started all over the United States and in the UK here to talk about it, to discuss what's in this book. And now only a few people really know it.
Oh yeah, no, I've never read it, but I have heard of it, and I know that it also sort of started a fad of books similar to it, didn't it, in the 1890s?
Yeah, it's a very influential book. It's like the first edition of this is quite collectible. Randy is saying I just finished Harlan. Yeah, Saturday. Yeah, he is good when he's good. I do want to get his, what is it, 50 years or something. There's a great big, there was a 30-year one, and then they did a 50-year one. Great big massive anthology, which is it's a great sort of overview of his fiction. Harlan was an interesting dude. I've been watching his Sci-Fi Channel. Yeah, they are. He is pretty. Yeah, though I think I know which ones you're talking about. And the one I really liked was where he was lambasting the awards. I think the Lifetime Achievement Awards and stuff, and saying, like, why wait until they die to give them the award? Do it now. And he was talking about A.E. Van Vogt, that should get an award. And he mentioned other ones too. Yeah, the Essential, Ellison, that's it. Yeah, because there's two of them. There's the 30-year, and then there's the 50-year. I obviously would love to get the 50-year, but that's just hugely expensive, even in the paperback. Rough copies.
Yeah, I've got to say that from everything I've read about him, it did seem Harlan Ellison was the most obstreperous man ever to have lived.
Well, he like, if people say it's because he was short, I don't know, but like his idea of the speculative fiction, he didn't want to be pigeonholed as science fiction, because he wanted his stuff to be a wider audience, because it's a lot of people have, like Brian Aldiss. I don't know if he was the first to do this in his Billionaire Spree, but to talk about that when there was this the specialized magazines for science fiction. It took the science fiction away from the more general magazines, the slicks, and put it and ghettoized it and put it into this thing, and then it degenerated a little bit to what they called like superhero type things and comic book type stuff, and so everybody thought that's what science fiction was. So it's like, no, I don't want to do that. I got better taste than that. Uh, Randy L. Ray, when he was doing movie reviews for fantasy and science fiction magazines, those were great. Yeah, yeah, the whole collection. There is well, I don't know if it's all of them, but yeah, there is the Harlan Ellison watching collected book, and those are good. Those are really good. Yeah, the award rants were great. Yeah, and yeah, he was right about that. I think because yeah, why wait until somebody's dead before honoring them? You know. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he had zero filter.
I will say one thing though. I've noticed that when he did interviews on British TV, he was a lot more genial than he was when he was doing American TV. Because there's one particular interview he did with Thames Television, and it would, if you watch that, you wouldn't associate him with sort of his reputation of being an awkward sod. It's like night and day.
I wonder because there is one that he was quite toned down, and I think Arthur C. Clarke was on there. They were sitting sort of in this circle of chairs.
No, the interview I'm thinking of is he's a one-on-one with I think it's a female interviewer. I think it was Sue Lawley. It might have been,
Oh, okay.
but
Yeah, that's that. I don't think I've seen that, but there was one that I remember that he was actually quite calmed down, and he was talking with other people. I think Arthur C. Clarke was there, and I can't remember who else. But it's sort of funny the little bits and pieces that are in Isaac Asimov's memoirs about Harlan Ellison are pretty good, and he used Harlan Ellison as sort of the model for his main character in the murder at the ABA. That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe he was worried about the libel laws. Yeah.
I mean, it might have been that, but it just seemed he seemed more relaxed and generally sort of easier going than when I seen the bits and pieces of American interviews he did.
He worried that what happened to the horror fiction market in the 80s and early 90s was going to happen to the science fiction market, oversaturated and bad writers and such. Yeah, like a lot of people were sort of talking about that, and that's the one thing, and that's why what I talking about like terminology, because his view of what speculative fiction was is a little different from everybody else. And then he also had the view, which still people do, and it's a touchy subject with many, is the difference between sci-fi and SF. And the a lot of people, the majority, I think, see just as a blanket term sci-fi is everything, but there's still people that and fans, and some get really really angry at it, and saying shouldn't use that and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, okay, as long as you know what the person is referring to, that's all you need to know. But yeah, talking about the looking backward, I got some other stuff that were kind of cool as well. This one here, I don't think it's this translation that I've read, unless there's a different one. It's Crystal City, the Crystal City Under the Sea, and it's hard to see, but it's really really neat. The back is plain, but they find an Atlantean, Atlantis, the survivors of Atlantis, under the water in a crystal city, which is really kind of cool. Spaminator. I went through a phase collecting horror paperbacks from THA. I'm not sure.
I think that might be then.
Then, okay, yeah. This one's really cool. I was really surprised to get this. Archibald Marshall, who was a really, really popular writer around the turn of the the first 20 years or so, and I think I'm not sure if he wrote in the 1800s as well. But this is Upsidonia. It's basically an alternate world, but it's also a world inside the Earth, like one of those, inner Earth worlds. But this guy was really popular, but again, completely forgotten today. Oh, missed this one here. Okay. I didn't think there was a bunch just popped up from that time period, and learned that they were out of print. The older folks are more concerned about sci-fi as a general term. Omni magazine took a stance against it in the 80s. Yeah, it's still some other people. It's like I can understand because it's a really, really tangled subject, and people get really angry about it on both sides. They stuck the 80s horror ones. Yeah, I never really was a huge horror fan, especially 80s stuff. I read a little bit in the late 70s, and then I think I pretty well gave up it sometime in the 80s.
There's a channel for the Spaminator to look at called Redbeard's horror books and vinyl, and it's a bloke who runs it, who goes through sort of New English library horror and all the sort of pulp horror stuff from the 60s to the 80s. It's really good. So that would be worth a look up if you like 80s horror.
Well, it doesn't really matter too much, I guess. But the thing is, I always sort of think that there's different types of different levels of science fiction. Like you've got the hard science fiction that is very science, and that's separated into something else. So how do you separate the stuff that's just action packed, space opera, that kind of thing, and no real depth to it? That to me is sci-fi. That's sci-fi. And that's a simple term, and that's how that was attributed to it in the 50s and 60s. But then it just took on a life of its own. Spaminator has been spammed. Yeah. The best thing to come out of the 80s horror was probably Robert McCammon. People just keep mentioning him, and I've never read anything by him, but he just writes big books, so I'm not sure if I want to pick up something like that unless it really grabs me. The horror niche that makes me laugh, is the extreme horror stuff. But then again, what is horror? Because you see, to me, is people call like slasher stuff horror, and to me that's horrific. But that's as horrific as descriptions of war. So is a description of war and people getting blown apart, is that horror as well then?
Yeah.
To me, there's no difference between those things. So to me, horror has to have, it has to be a supernatural aspect to it. Otherwise, it's just horrific. which you don't have to have anything. It's nothing separate from, like, it's just a serial killer. That's all. That's
Yeah.
all it is. That's horror then. But to me, that's horrific. But it's not horror. But
Yeah.
I
It's
know
like
I'm in the minimum. I'm not the minimum. I'm in the minority there.
yeah. I mean, if it's horror, just by definition of being horrifying, the war film Come and See is a horror film. The
Mm.
one about the Eastern Front in the Soviet film from the 80s. You ever
Yeah.
seen that?
No, I
That
haven't, but I'm aware of it. Yeah, but that's what I mean.
yeah,
It's that would be horror as well if that's what it is.
yeah.
McCammon is a real treat. I was snobbish when I was younger, and I thought he was a Stephen King knockoff, but he's much more than that. And Greg says Robert McCammon wrote some good short uh, novels. Yeah, it is something that if I get the yen to read some horror, I'll probably keep him in mind. It's just I just associate, like, it's like fantasy. I'm not a huge fantasy fan, and when I see these huge fantasy books that go on in like 50 sequels, I'm not interested in reading those too much. Sam West writes extreme horror, but it doesn't seem extreme, just gratuitous. I think horror fiction is down to the atmosphere and the tone, and that's why bad horror writing is unintentionally funny. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, like that would be an argument for it, I suppose. Yeah. I've read some extreme horror. It made me giggle more than anything. Horror, anything can be subjective. Yeah. Yeah. Well, like, yeah, if I get the end, as I say, to read some horror, and I am in a position to buy stuff again, then yeah, I'll check him out, because I've known he's been a mainstay there for a long time. King I've read, and I'm not enamored by Stephen King at all.
Because I've actually never read any of King's novels. I've only read collections of short stories, which are all right, but I do so as far as I can tell, King does seem to like to give every story, every character a backstory before he gets the story going in his novels.
Hmm.
From what I've been told.
Yeah. Saying that about King, though, for myself, I do want to read, which I've not read, is Salem's Lot, and I do want to read that one. Mystery has a lot of subgenres, yeah, and that don't have uh, a in lot. I'm not sure. For example, cozy, yeah, cat mysteries, yeah, and they don't belong together really. Yeah, that's what I mean. That's how science fiction. Well, they belong together, I guess, in the sense because they're a mystery or crime, but they're so different from each other. And to me, with science fiction, that kind of stuff that is just pure entertainment, pure, like the 1920s super science stuff, like Doc Smith, those are fun, but they're not. You can't compare those and say they're the same thing as Dune or Hyperion or even Foundation or any of that stuff, even getting older stuff. So to me, it's legitimate to have a different thing for that. But again, sci-fi has too much baggage to it to be useful for that now, because the same as I was saying with speculative fiction, there's too much baggage.
Yeah.
I like my horror to have monsters, ghosts. Yeah, yeah, supernatural. That to me is horror. I've never been scared of anything like that, but I love ghost stories. I do love ghost stories, and and I I read every November, or I try to read ghost stories. I've got a lot of anthologies that I haven't read, and I reread some of the anthologies. Cozy Cat Mystery sounds different. Yeah. Stephen King is like the little girl who had A curl on her forehead when she was good. She was very good. She was, sounds like yes, kid. A nice double feature is King's Salem's Lot and McCammon's They Thirst. Oh, okay. So he's done well, I guess every horror writer has done a vampire type story at some point in their career, I suppose. The Stephen King you should bother with is in Pet Cemetery. Yeah, have I read Pet Cemetery? No, I've read about 4 of them, but no, not Pet Cemetery. I didn't like the film. I didn't like the film Pet Cemetery, but I did like the TV series Salem's Lot.
Yeah.
That I did.
I wonder how many people have seen an adaptation of Stephen King as opposed to have read the actual books.
Yeah, well, I think that's probably true with a lot of writers. It's like I've been reading Dracula. A lot of people, like I think Mark was saying, he read it. I think it wasn't this year. I don't think it was last year, but he just didn't think there was any use reading it because you see it so many times, the story, but you really don't know the story.
Yeah.
I also enjoy the supernatural stories where you aren't even sure if there actually is a supernatural. Yeah. Like one of my favorites, ghost ones, is Turn of the Screw by Henry James. That's so ambiguous that it's marvelous, and the film Innocence is a marvelous adaptation of it. It's very different, but they've done something to capture the feeling of it.
Yeah.
I've watched way more adaptations than I've read. Yeah.
Very much the same here, Jenny.
Who let her in? Hi, Brandy. Stephen King movies are never as good as the books. Yeah, I can believe that. Pest Cemetery is awesome. His best story. Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. No, I'm sure now that I haven't read it. I've read Christine. I can't even think of the others, but I did read one. I read one that he wrote with what is it? Did he co-write The Talisman?
He might have done with Peter Straub.
Yeah, because I like Peter Straub, and I've read that and I thought it was pretty good. I want to get his Peter Straub's, what is it just called? Ghost Story. That's it. Yeah. I want to get that again and reread it. But then I almost always watch adaptations first and then read the book. That's usually how it works, because a lot of times when I was younger, I didn't know that, and I still now have found out, oh, that was based on a book. And I never heard of the book. And occasionally it happens.
Oh, that's how I found out about Dennis Wheatley, because I watched the Hammer version of The Devil Rides Out.
Oh, yeah.
And then I saw it was on, saw in the credits it was by Dennis Wheatley. And then I went to the local library and they got an omnibus of The Devil Rides Out, The Gateway to Hell, and another one. And I think it was Toby Jug. And I read my way through them.
Speaking of Dennis Wheatley.
I've not read that one, but I do know it's sci-fi.
Yeah, and it's funny because he says in here, it says, for Freddie and Betty, who first intrigued me with the mystery of flying saucer, and it was that husband and wife, the husband and wife that said that they were taken up by aliens, and I can't remember when that was the late 40s or the 50s, I think it was, but I can't remember now. It must have been late 40s.
I can't remember the names.
I always skip adaptations for all genres. Oh, you mean an adaptation of the like a novelization of the film? I think that's. And I finished the Oxford. Oh yeah, that is. Yes. those are two fabulous collections. I've reread the Oxford Book of English Ghost Stories several times, and the same as the Victorian Ghost Stories. There's a 20th century one too. I'm not sure if I mentioned that to you. I think I mentioned that. I mentioned that to someone on another live. But yeah, the Victorian one's really good as well. Yeah, Ghost Story, the Peter Straub. That is good. The film is actually quite good too. It's different, but I did like the book is, well, I can't even remember what I was going to say, but yeah, no, I think it is underrated. Yeah, it is really good. Just realized that twice now I've misspelled adaptation. Oops, I didn't notice.
So yeah.
To the devil.
Yes,
daughter.
yes. In that case, do not watch the Hammer film before you read the book. The book is very different and better.
Yeah, the Hammer film's a bit.
Yeah. I like it, but it's definitely not a film that you want to see before you've read the book.
Know that we're talking about King. Steve's gonna pop up.
Yeah, I'm actually genuinely surprised we haven't heard a very loud bang from across the Atlantic Ocean.
Thanks for defending me. You mentioned it to me before. Yeah, okay, and now my wallet is lighter, so thanks. Right, you're welcome. But yeah, no, there's a lot of, there's actually what's, trying to remember the name, Valancourt Press put out four or five Christmas collections of Victorian ghost stories that are pretty good. They're pretty short. I was buying them, but I haven't got the last one, and I think they stopped, I think, at the 5th or 6th volume, I think. So like Beetlejuice, yeah.
And actually,
he's too busy, I think, now. He's actually got work to do.
Have you ever seen a collected E.F. Benson E.F. Benson's collected short stories anywhere?
His ghost stories or horror stories, yes. The Wordsworth have done it. It's about 500 pages long.
Oh, okay.
Wordsworth editions, and they're cheap. They're only like $2.99 each anyway. So they're a good. They're good.
I've always enjoyed his work, but I've never been able to find a complete collection of his horror stories.
Yeah, I think it's complete. If it's not complete, it's nearby. But then you want to get his brother's collections too. Like his other two brothers wrote some ghost stories too, and they're interesting to compare. The senior Benson wrote some ghost stories.
Do you know the connection between E.F. Benson and Turning of the Screw?
Well, they lived in the same house in Rye. I don't know the.
Oh no, it's particularly that novel. There's a very particular connection.
No, I don't.
Which is that Benson's father was the Archbishop of Canterbury, and he told James the story.
Yes,
which gave me the idea for Turning the Screw.
Yes, yeah, I remember reading that now that you mentioned it, I remember that in the introduction to, I think, the Oxford edition. Yeah, no, but they also lived in the same house in Rye. They owned the same house in Rye, and Benson based that house was the Map and Lucia series. That's the house there. But yeah, there's that connection as well.
Is the Monsieur Benson the one who wrote the book Lord of the World or something?
I don't know how much he wrote, but I know there's a very slim volume of his ghost stories that are out there. And then there's the other Benson, A.C. Benson, that a fabulous essayist. but he also wrote some ghost stories as well. I've not read his though.
He was a M.R. James's friend, wasn't he? A.C. Benson.
Sorry, I was reading.
Oh,
sorry.
Oh, A.C. Benson, I think, was friends with M.R. James, wasn't he?
Yeah, most likely because it was Oxford, so they were at Oxford, I think, together. Oxford, yeah. There's an Oxford Horror Stories collection with a fantastic cover. I'm not sure which one that is. Is it a new one? I guess. Mr. James is king of ghost story. Yeah, MRJ. Yeah, Mr. James. Yeah, MR James, Montague Rhodes James. Yes. No, yeah, and not all of them are really ghost stories in some ways. But,
no, I mean, most of his ghosts are just aren't ghosts; they're malevolent spirits, demons, almost in some cases.
Yeah, Spaminator says, yeah, it's the Wordsworth edition that he has, the Benson collection.
Yeah, he's deciding to climb on my lap all of a sudden.
Reads who was the author of to Kindle has a few books.
Oh, it's Dennis Wheatley.
Yeah. Just saw the Beetlejuice comment. That's the devil and his daughter. Yeah, Dennis Wheatley wrote a lot of different stuff. Oh, Jesus. Oh, yeah. I'm not saying it out loud.
No. You know, I mean, Wheatley did all sorts, wrote, as you say, all sorts. I mean, his first book that got published was Forbidden Territory, which is about the core group of characters who run through a lot of his books: the Duke Drishlow, Simon Aaron, Richard Eaton, and Rex Van Ryn. They go off to search for Tsarist gold in the Soviet Union. Then the direct sequel to that is The Devil Rides Out.
Yeah.
And then the book after that is where they go to Spain to fight in the Spanish Civil War.
I need more than a dare. Now, we are talking about horror here, okay? And what's more horrific? That'll bring him out for sure, then.
I wouldn't just talking about Wheatley. The first book he ever wrote, which was published in 1940, was a murder mystery in the style of Agatha Christie.
Yeah. Well, he's done a few mysteries, sort of. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. He did, cats are better than dogs. Yeah.
He did in the 30s. He did some of these. I forgot what you call them now. They're the choose your own adventure detective stories where you have to work out who the killer was as you read it along. It has clues in it and pieces of paper, documents and everything in it. Called
now they're arguing in the comments here. What's better, cat or dog?
Well, I obviously got a cat, but my mom has got a dog as well, so I'm torn between them.
Cats are easier to take care of, that's for sure.
Yeah. Except when they get interested in something, they won't stop going near it.
Well, mine had me well trained, and if he wanted anything and wanted my attention, he just started to attack the books or pretend to attack the books, and he knew he would get my attention.
Oh, like I say, Ginger's reasonably well behaved. Like when I got food around, he knows not to go near it, but he does meow a lot just to complain about the world in general. Usually about things that I have no power over.
Well, my cat, the big black, called him Dylan, and he was completely black except he had a white little star on just the base of his neck, and he would open up the fridge. He knew how to open up the fridge, and at one Christmas he pulled the turkey out on himself. and he figured out how to open doors. Like he used to have door handles that are like this. You went like this to open, and he figured out how to do that. He would open the door. He would watch me. So, and I didn't want him to get into there because that's where the food was.
Yeah.
His food, and so I turned it and I put that kind of thing. So he'd watch me do this, and he'd be there trying to do this. Like he knew exactly what he was doing.
So that's one of the reasons why I never have, since having Ginge, I've never had a Christmas tree, because I know exactly what's going to happen. I'll put it up, I'd walk out the living room, and then all I'd hear is a huge bang, and he'd bring it down and he'd run off as if he's attacked him.
Yeah, goldfish. Yeah, they're good to go with cats. Cats are pickier about who they love. Four cats. They're perfect pets for Sammy One dog too. He lives in terror.
Oh yeah. My feet aren't safe. My right foot isn't safe on a night.
Now dogs are awesome too. Sometimes. Cats are sociopaths. Yeah, well, a lot of dogs are psychopaths. Sociopath is just somebody that can't get along with other people in society. I do love dogs as well. I just prefer cats, but I have to give dog owners hell. If cats are sociopaths, dogs are stalkers. Oh God, where were we? We were talking about horror first of all, and science fiction. Now we got the cats and dogs. Jeez.
Actually, I do have a question for you. It's actually about film, not books. How much nudity was there in film before the Hays Code?
How much nudity?
Yeah, or close to it at least.
There was in silent stuff. There is quite a bit, and before that, there was like in a lot of silent films, like in Ben-Hur. There's a progression, and there's all topless women in it. Usually, it's breasts that are seen or rear ends. There's not any explicit nudity or sex, but they allude to things. Like there's the pre-code film, I can't remember the name of it, but it's set during the Roman period, and they take this woman out and tie her to the stake, and she's got long hair just covering her bits. But then a gorilla comes out, and then they pan out to the audience, and all the audience goes, "Oh." So you could just sort of figure out what was happening there that they were suggesting.
I suppose the argument they made was it was just like nudity in paintings of the classical period, something like that.
I don't know, but when film started, they figured out two things sold well: sex, nudity, and violence. Those are the two things they figured out sold well. So they just played on that. Why they're happy that
he decided to do this. I don't know why.
Yeah, mine used to do that. He used to actually fall asleep on my shoulders when I was reading or something like that. It happens. Pets to parts. That was a sharp turn.
Now, the reason I asked is because last week I re-listened to an audio. Well, I think it's arguably a podcast, but I bought it off Audible, and it's by Alec Roke. and it's about he does a couple of them about the history of Hollywood. One of them is about sex in Hollywood, and the other one is about Universal horror. And I just wondered just to ask about that because he talked about in that how the Hays Code affected them.
Yeah, that's Alexis. You just brought up my GoFundMe thing to, it's like, I need this much money to not wear it. Well, enjoy your work. And this may seem stupid, but just because you're nude, you don't do wrestling in bed with.
Well.
Right? Well, Mark's not here, so we can't talk about his collection. Bye, Brandy. Sex, nudity, and violence. Normal Wednesday night on the Spam. Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff, but the thing was that it never really changed the Hays Code. It just actually made them write things a little more creatively, and then you get Mae West, who she would put stuff in the scripts that were very, very that she would never film. But she put those in order to keep the stuff she wanted. So they would go, and stroke that out and then leave the stuff that she wanted to. At least that's the story. But I think a lot of them did that. Okay, now we're going into different directions here.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, the other book that I wanted to show, which was kind of interesting, if nobody's seen, is The Martian by George du Maurier. And that's Daphne du Maurier's granddaddy.
All right. Also, Gerald du Maurier's dad as well. Because
yes, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a picture of him there. This is his last book, and I read it a long time ago. It's actually got some pretty neat illustrations in, but I can't remember why really, but there's this guy going to a therapist or somebody like a therapist, a woman, and it turns out she's a Martian. She's from Mars, and she helps him. It's one of those things that it's like a science fiction type thing, or at least something like that. Time for the children to leave the room. Yeah. Oh, and beautiful. Now we'll get back to some wholesome stuff.
Okay.
Look at these dust jacket covers from the 1950s, book club editions, but just gorgeous. And they're complete. I've showed the Dennis Wheatley one. And here's another one, A.J. Cronin. Just gorgeous. Like the spines are a bit darkened, but hey, 65 years, 70 years, you'd be darkened too on your backside.
Oh, we've triggered Mark.
Well, it can't be as bad as Brandy making them vomit one time. I can't remember what that was, how she did that, but that was good. But yeah, but no, I'm just sort of really surprised that they must have been sitting on the shelf. I don't even think they've been read because they're still extremely tight. They've never been read. They've been sitting on somebody's shelf for near on 70 years.
Oh, I have got one thing I want to show because it's for I'm actually going to take part in June on the Range. And I bought this off eBay last year, but I never got around to looking at it. It's this.
Oh wow, yeah.
So
Is that the British edition? Is that the British edition of it? Or
Yeah, if you just look, can you see that there?
yeah, the British edition. Yeah.
So I'm gonna have a go at reading that. It's got yeah, that's inside. I don't
Satan's
recognise
Rage.
any of the authors, but
That's cool. Yeah, I see them, and you can buy quite a few of them fairly cheap still, like from the 40s and 50s. They're not that expensive. Yeah, no, that's really cool. I've got most of my stuff. There's 2 Zane Grey books that I'm still looking for, but I think I've got everything else.
there's a couple of things I'm going to. I'm going to try these because I've seen these in the library. For years I've been seeing these. Yeah, if you go into, at least around in my libraries around here, you go into the library and you'll see a shelf full of those. They're about that thick. So the small 100 and odd page westerns, and there's probably 200 of them in the shelf. I've never picked one up and read one, so I bought one to read it for Garb August. Sorry, for June on the Range. Though, so from what I've been told, it could also be read for Garb August as well.
Alexis is asking any suggestions on Chinese literature, reading the 3 Body Problem series. Now I want to start the fantasy of the 3 Kingdoms. The only stuff I know is like the Room of the Red Chamber or something like that. And there's a few other, like, they're 500 or 600 years old. I do have, I picked up, but I can't get to it now. I know exactly where it is, but it's the Cambridge literature volumes. I have the 2 Chinese literature volumes. I picked up on Amazon. Some seller was selling these, and they were still in the cellophane wrap, and they were only £2 something for the both volumes. And these are like 100 and some pounds, and I couldn't pass that up. The Watermark. Oh yeah, that's another one. I can't think of the author's name. Yeah. Mark probably knows more recent stuff than I do. That's for sure.
Like I say, I've never read any Chinese literature, to be honest, so I wouldn't be. I'm not the person to ask.
Yeah, there's a great series that again, my brain is not where I can't remember it, but it's a Chinese literature series, and they've started out with lots of poetry. And I started buying the series, but I've had to default on it and not continue buying it. It's an academic press, but I can't remember the press. But it's all. But they were going to publish not only just poetry, but novels and history and science, actually, and everything. Yeah, I was thinking of trying to figure out the other name of it. Yeah, The Outlaws of the Marsh. I think Folio Society put out a really, really nice edition of it. Yeah, The Dream of the Red Chamber. Yeah, that is fabulous. But it is big, yes. Fantasy of the 3 Kingdoms is from the 1300s in China. It is not a fantasy novel. Yeah, because there's another name for that, I think, isn't there? Yeah, Tale of the Genji. Someone failed chiming in with the Tale of the Genji. But that's not Chinese, is it? I can't remember now. The Romance of the 3 Kingdoms. Tuttle does a good one. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Like, yeah, those Tuttle, because I want to get the Tuttle Lefkady O'Hearn reprints that they've done. Fabulous covers on them. Yeah, it's Japanese. I thought it was Japanese. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, that's about all I know of Chinese stuff, and I'm sure there's tons. That's why I got these two books, and I never got around to actually looking at them because I figured I'd love to read more about Chinese literature, and I never figured it out. Yeah, I think I'd just go for the Penguin one. Whoever did that one, the deluxe. I think it's the deluxe Penguin. Mark probably knows who the translator is, but I can't off the top of my head. I don't know the translator. But I read. I don't know who. I think the translation that I read must have been a really old one, and I don't think it was complete either, because it didn't have access to a lot of stuff, and a lot of it was Victorian translators.
Mm.
Yeah, the Penguin looks nicer than the Norton one, though. I wish Norton would step up their game on the look of books. Like, yeah, I like the photo, but it's Count. You can't really see it, Count Orlok.
Mm.
But I don't like the style. I don't like the set out of the way they do it, particularly. But that's just me. Yeah, because I do see people reading one or the other. But yeah, the one I read had to have been a Victorian translation, and I'm sure wasn't even complete. So it's about time that I reread it. Oh, the other thing that I wanted to say that I got today as well. This is for Will Sean like it? Never has anybody read anything by Christopher Paolini?
It's
Paolini?
it's pronounced. I think it's pronounced Paolini.
Oh, Paolini. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
The only thing of his I've read was the thing he's probably most famous for was the Aragon books, which are
Yeah,
fantasy books he published when he was, I think he was about 15 or 16 years old.
really? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
he was published really young, and they're good. Um, they're very Tolkien inspired, but they're reasonably good. I enjoyed them when I was about 15, 16 myself. So
Yeah, it's showing that there's four of them here, and then there's Fractal Verse, and then this is the third one, but it's a prequel apparently to The Sleep of the Stars, and then there's Unity. So, as I was saying in my thing, I hope I don't like it too much, because if I like it too much, then I want to read more of this. But I like the premise, even though it's a journey. These people are thrown together, and they've got their demons, and all this stuff comes out in their journey and that stuff. It's been done to death, but I still like that style.
yeah,
Yeah. I've read him, enjoyed Aragon, and To Sleep in a Sea of Stars was better than expected. So yeah, so this I think this is apparently a prequel to that. So yeah, and thanks to Freeman for sending that to me. I don't know when I'm going to get it, because I still got Empire of the Vampire to read yet, as well as for Will Sean like it. Those books are great. I'm reading The Tale of the Heike. Yeah. I want £10 for an ebook. Oh my god!
Isn't it? I wonder if it said it was cheaper to buy it in hardback.
I don't know. I did look. Well, I looked up to see when the date that was released, and it says the 16th. I didn't look at I didn't actually look at the price. Probably it can't be much more. It's probably most. Does it have a price that it's come out as? See, £20.
Yeah.
is the hardcover, the full price. So Amazon was probably selling this, pre-selling it for 12, 13, 14, 15 pounds. And 10 pounds for an ebook. That is ridiculous.
At least you get you get, if it's £12, at least you get the package postage free on Amazon.
Yeah. Well, that's what I hate, when it's $9.99 and you it just, they won't do. It's like, just make it 10 pounds or 10 and 1 pence or something. But that's where I would always, especially when I was buying the books and it was like, say, $7.99 or $8.99, I'd always throw in a Wordsworth edition because they were like, $2.99 or less. Agreed, Jenny. I hate it when they have to spend that kind of money for an ebook. Yeah, that is ridiculous. But it does sound good. Like, I just don't know the guy. I don't know. It's just it got an awful wide margin in here on the outside page, and it looks weird. Like, the text looks so narrow in comparison. Like, it's a really wide margin. Didn't notice that, but anyway. So yeah, it's got Adrian Tchaikovsky on here praising it. A powerful piece of SF with intelligent writing and big ideas. John Scalzi, the book of Paolini fans have been waiting for. Peter F. Hamilton, Kirkus Reviews. See, that could be Steve. Fun, fast-paced epic that science fiction fans will gobble up. Oh, jeez. This is typical. The Daily Mail. Great space opera with rockets on. God almighty. To Sleep even has a sound? An ebook that has a soundtrack? Is that what you're saying, Jenny? That's something that's new to me, if that's the case.
Sorry about that. I've got to say, I've never read that. I've heard of authors putting lists of tracks for particular books on the website, but I've never seen it.
Yeah, I think that's what Jenny's referring to, but we'll just have to wait to see what she says when she replies to that. But yeah, no, I am looking forward to that, because I'm trying to think of the word, but it's just it's always done like but I do love those stories of a journey, especially science fiction. Clifford Simak is really good at doing that, and Hyperion was fabulous at that. That was really good. But it is an almost overdone thing, but it still works. But yeah, just trying to think what else. Oh yeah, this other stuff. This is a really neat series, and I'd only just found out about it. It's MIT Press, and it's a series called Radium Age Science Fiction. So it's like the first 20 or 30 years of the 20th century, and really cool covers too that fit. And I was sent 6 of them. This one's really cool. This one I've wanted to read for quite a while. It's the first cyborg novel that was written in 1920, I think, or published 1923. A World of Women. Yep, and this was published in 1913. Yeah, Radium Age. Just a lot of cool artwork that's on there. That's a bit of a weird one.
I've heard of that because Steve got sent a copy, and
did he?
he'd heard of the author before, but I'd never heard of it myself.
Yeah, I'd heard of. I'm pretty sure I've heard of the author. This one I knew nothing about. I never heard of the author of One Blood, and it was only originally published, and it would have been a small magazine for the time. 1902, the Colored American magazine, and so that could be interesting because that's 120 some years old.
Yeah.
Oh, well, have a good evening or afternoon for you, Greg. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah. Do they do Kindle deals here in the UK? I guess that would be a question. I'm assuming they do. I just never buy it, so I don't know. To Sleep even has a soundtrack, which is actually good. Most new fiction eventually hit the Kindle. Yeah, it's gonna run. It looks like the original steampunk with those covers. Yeah, it is. It is really cool. They are cool. Well, the original steampunk is Jules Verne, I guess you could call it.
Yeah. And then the original and the first couple of H.G. Wells is novels, I would think.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of like the steampunk series that I like is Mark Hatter. I think it is his name. Swinburne and the Burton and Swinburne mystery, sort of, I think they're called.
Yeah, I heard of them. I've got to say, I know Mark Hatter mostly for these editing work on the Sexton Blake books.
Yeah. It's neat that those are coming back, but that's God. There's I don't know how many thousands of novels have been written. Sexton Blake, more than I think Sherlock Holmes for some reason.
Oh yeah, I think they had something like a novel, probably a novel a week since from 1893 up until the mid 60s, something like that.
Yeah, there's lots of. Well, you would did you order this Frank Reed? Well, I don't want to take that out there because I'm sure it'll fall. Frank Reed Jr., the Steam Man.
Not yet. I'm just looking for a cheap copy.
Those are really cool, and people have continued on with that, where the descendants, like there's actually soldiers in the First World War, that are steam powered soldiers. It's really, really weird. And there's somebody that's got a whole site, and it's a whole family of these people that are doing this kind of thing. So that's really cool. But yeah, we're getting up to an hour and a half, well, an hour and 20 minutes, and we've really dropped in people watching now. So we got 5. So maybe we should wrap this up.
Okay.
And if anybody else has anything else to talking point or anything like that, then please put a comment up.
On that, just since you brought up Frank Reed, there is it on Audible. I'm not sure if this is an Audible original or you can buy the paperbacks, but there's a series called Reeves and Wooster, which is a combination of Jeeves and Wooster, Sherlock Holmes, but where the Reeves character, which is sort of the Jeeves version, is a steam-powered automaton.
Yes, yeah. Somebody told me about that. Yeah, I think there's 2 or 3 that have been written, and only one of them are, I think, in a real book form, in a printed book form. But yeah, those look kind of neat.
Yeah, I listened to one of them, and it was really enjoyable.
Yeah, I should look into getting at least the one that's in print, I suppose, and see what it's like. But yeah, people are doing it, and there is a series that somebody started where is it Birdie that's an MI5 agent or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, like we could stick around, but yeah, I don't know if anybody else, if there's anything else. We're losing viewers here, so unless there's anything else that anybody wanted to mention, or if Aaron, you had anything else.
Let me just see. No, no. I've got nothing else to show. So, well, I've got it.
I'll be doing a.
Yeah,
Hmm?
show him if you want.
Yeah, you show that. Yeah. I'll have to put in the title with special guest, and then it'll get thousands of views. Oh, we're gaining a few viewers here now, so maybe we can continue. Yeah, I was gonna. I'm going to do something else. Like it's sort of separate. I'm trying to keep these a little bit separate from my booktube sort of stuff. Is my COVID things, because I had some nurses over today that it's not good news, but it's going in the right direction for some things with my health, and I'll do a separate video on that. I think it's just like it's partially COVID related, but anyway, but yeah, it's the COVID, the gift that keeps on giving. But yeah, no, I'm just really stoked that I got so many of these great things. These are review copies, I think, and I think there's a few that I don't have in this list. Whatnot by Rose Macaulay, and then The World Set Free by H.G. Wells. But there's another one that's an H.G. Wells and Arthur Conan Doyle, I think. Maybe it was in that one. But yeah, no, it's just it's neat that this stuff is coming back, and there's also too, I found out that there's Baen Books have put out, sadly only as ebooks though, Kindle. Like there's somebody that's gone through and pulling this old stuff like this, and like the first of certain things, like the first rocket ship that a rocket ship that was used in 1851, the first time hydroponics was used, all sorts of things like the artificial gravity, and this is all like 1890s and early 1900s, and they've have done an introduction to that, and I actually had credit. I bought one of them on Kindle because I wanted to look at it. Yeah. I had a Kindle credit that I forgot that's been sitting there forever, and all I had to do is put, I think, 6 or 8 pence to it to get this book. So I thought, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, but yeah, it's just well, the interesting thing with this is that there's no DRM, there's no digital rights management on these, even though they're paying books. And it's like the guy's got a list of like, I guess 60 or 70 of these that he's done, and it's stuff that I've never seen these books. Some of them I've never even heard of, but a lot of them I have, and I just didn't think I'd ever be able to read them. So technically, they're available now on ebooks, which I have difficulty reading, but even so.
I wonder, do you know in that those ones that you've been sent review copies, are they only English speaking books, English language books, or do they include any translations?
I think they're all these are English, in original, like they're either American writers or British writers. Like this is a British writer. Yeah. I don't think they might go and do other stuff, but I think they're all. Yeah, there's one in here. Like this is a short story, Voices from the Radium Age, and the person's name. Oh no, Mark said he read this last year, Sultana's Dream, Rokeya Sakawat Hossein. So I don't know if that was it doesn't say it was translated, so I'm assuming it's not then. Yeah, no, I don't think it is.
The only reason I asked is because I know there's this book which was written in, I think, 1906 in France called Dr. Omega. Have you ever heard of it? It's where he goes into a rocket into space. And of course, the only reason I know about it is because the front cover art of Dr. Omega looks just like William Hartnell's Doctor in Doctor Who.
There's a few of those, and yeah, I am familiar. I've not read them, but I am familiar with them. And there's a few, and it is a little strange because I think there's one cover that a spaceship has picked up a rowboat or something like that, and it's those are quite interesting, and you can easily get the original translations. I mean, not the original French versions or German translations, really cheap, but the English translations are expensive.
No, they did a translation a few years ago when they got they did the front. The old Doctor Who novelizations from the 70s. That they did an English translation with one of those with a cover just like that, and they got Terence Dix, I think he did his surname, the one who did quite a lot of Doctor Who script, writing an introduction to it, and that okay. I hadn't been able to get hold of it, but I'd love to, just because to see what it was like.
Good luck. Yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff like that. What's his name? Brian Stableford. Go on his Wikipedia page if anybody's interested. From about 2000 to about 2018, he must has translated over 100 French novels. There's one that I'm going to read at some point here, and I just pulled it out because I was setting up something. I wanted to read some stuff on Venus, and it's Achille Urad, I think it is, and it's Stableford says it's the first novel with a rocket, but this is 1865. But there's one from 1851 that has a rocket, so that's not quite true. But this is Venus, and I was gonna do a read of sort of early Venus stuff and just sort of pop all the way through to modern Venus at some point. But it's just a cool cover. Like he's translated a lot of stuff, but it's strange. It says adapted by on the cover. But on the inside, it says translated. And I've never come across anybody who says that he's changed anything. So I don't know. But he's done so many. So I do kind of wonder. But it is interesting stuff. And it's just it's just so great that this stuff is available now, if for anybody who's interested in it. And I started looking at it again because of doing these defining science fiction videos, and I was looking up stuff, and I wanted to find this because I might do something on eventually on like rockets, like where rockets came, but I need to read these. I should really read it first before I do that.
You've just reminded me of something. That video you did I'm not sure when you did it. It was the one where you read the description of the War of the Worlds effect about the broadcast, and then about the British British
Yeah,
show.
yeah.
Well, that reminded me of something. You know about Ronald Knox, the Catholic priest who wrote the 10 Rules for Detection, I think it was called, or 10 Commandments. In 1926, this was on Boxing Day at the BBC. He broadcast a short, I think it was half an hour or 25-minute radio play about a revolution taking place in Britain as if it was a news broadcast, and where he described revolutionaries taking over London and the British Army shelling Parliament, and it caused widespread panic.
Oh, I didn't know about that. Yeah.
You
When
know,
was that again?
I think it was Boxing Day. I think 1926. When I think that
early, yeah.
yeah, and I think the reason why it caused mass panic was because, of course, it was only would have been 7 months from after the general strike when people thought there was actually going to be a revolution. So
yeah, because I you don't hear that referenced to things because you hear about the War of the Worlds,
yeah,
Orson Welles' thing, because people, well, see, by then, by the 30s, they were conditioned to hear news, music, and entertainment, and not everything mixed up. But at the beginning, because that would have been near at the beginning of radio in the UK here.
Yeah,
like before, but
yeah. I mean, the BBC was set up as a British Broadcasting Company in 1922. So it was, I think, actually, it would have been only roughly a week before it became the BBC as the British Broadcasting Corporation.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, well, that's really cool. There's probably no recordings of it either.
No, they still got the scripts for it though.
That's cool. I'm gonna have to look that up because I am interested in that. But yeah, I think we'll call it an evening here. We're an hour and a half in, and there's 5 viewers. But thanks for everybody for stopping by. And I'm not sure when our normal programming will be back in the sense of our Friday reads for Mark and I, because it depends on how he fares for the rest of the week. But send good wishes to him.
Yeah.
So anyway, thanks for stopping by, everybody. See you next time.
See ya.